Excellent. Okay, Bossier Parish schools, you're getting ready to start when, and in the biggest, broadest sense, have any decisions been made?
Well, we're scheduled to start with students return on August 12th, teachers on August 10th, and we're still working on what this is going to look like. We're trying to get more information from the governor's office and Louisiana Department of Education, and we want to, our desire and hope and what we're planning for is a traditional start with guidelines in place that require spacing, and then some other things, staggered movements, transitions, distancing in the hallways, those types of things.
How do you accommodate that with regard to the, separating the desks further? I mean, obviously that means smaller classroom sizes, and you don't have an unlimited budget to bring in more teachers, so it's got to be a struggle, huh?
It's definitely challenging, and we've got a task force made up of principals and teachers, different district leaders. All these sites are different in configuration and size, so it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all. We're going to have to consider each specific location and have a plan for how we can accommodate the maximum distancing possible. It's a challenge and it's difficult, but we have a great team here, and we're going to work through each scenario one by one and make sure that we consider all of the different activities that go on and how we're going to address them and those types of things.
Dr. Gorey, we had Dr. Gorey on from Caddo last week, and he had said there's like 3 options and maybe hybrids of all 3. In fact, that was the term he used. Either there's traditional school, there's digital school, or there's a little of both. I assume that you're kind of looking at that same scenario.
Yes, sir. I think that's a conversation all over the country, to be honest with you. Everybody's desires traditional start. I think that's the most effective way to provide instruction and engagement. But there are conversations about a combination of that and some type of distance learning. We get new information every day. I think that some of the conversations have shifted to the potential for toggling back and forth, if you will, between daily attendance and some type of distance learning. I'll go ahead and say it now. The 2 greatest challenges for everybody are child care and transportation.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever it looks like in terms of one of the suggestions was that middle and high school could better accommodate an in-person type setup with some distance learning than an elementary, obviously, because of the child care issue. I think we all understand that child care is going to be the thing that allows the economy to reopen fully, and without child care, everybody's impacted.
I think, back to Dr. Gorey for a second, I certainly wouldn't want to put words in his mouth, but I don't think he'd disagree that when he sort of implied to us that the online school, the digital school that wrapped up last school year was not optimum, less than successful. How would you summarize in Bossier Parish your own attempt at that?
Well, I think we definitely learned a lot from that, and we've been able to work on refining that process. That is not the desired approach. I don't personally think that the engagement level is maximized by that. It's obviously a challenge for parents. All of us are going to have to provide instruction to the parents and the students when we are in person about what that looks like, and we have a plan for that to try to better prepare everyone if we do have to shift to some type of format similar to what we had to do in the spring. But those are huge challenges, and I think that we do have the benefit that we learned from some of the challenges that we had in the spring, and we're all hopeful that moving forward we're going to have addressed a lot of those. The broadband and connectivity throughout Bossier Parish is a challenge. I think we're probably somewhere in the middle as far as districts across the state are concerned. The percentage that I'm getting is that about 65% of our students and parents have connectivity, so those 35% or so that don't, we're trying to work with other entities within the parish, including the police jury, and to provide or try to solve that riddle, if you will. But that takes time, and that's probably a 2 or 3 year process, to be honest with you.
Well, Caddo handed out Chromebooks or made them available to students. Have you done something similar in Bossier, and at what cost was that?
Well, we handed out over 1,500 Chromebooks so that students would have devices. It is very expensive. Everybody throughout the state got CARES Act money for the individual districts to try to address some of those areas of deficiency. We put out hotspots and MiFi and Wi-Fi to those areas that had the lesser service, but we still have some areas that don't have any service. So MiFi or Wi-Fi won't help there.
When the CDC recommends 15 children on a bus or thereabouts, how do you even come to grips with transporting children to school with those limitations if you have to follow that?
Well, I don't think you do. I think if we get to phase 3 and 75% capacity is attained, then we can adjust routes and add some routes. That's a huge challenge. Like I said earlier, transportation and child care are the two biggest hurdles. But I think we have to be in phase 3 where we can provide transportation with a 75% capacity maximum, and our transportation department is working on a schedule for that. Obviously, that's a very huge logistical challenge, but I think it's doable in phase 3. I think it's almost impossible, and I hate to use that word, in phase 1 or 2. Hopefully our parents are going to help with transportation where possible, but that's something that we're currently working through.
Mr. Mitch, sports, specifically football, is on the near horizon. What's the plan? What are you thinking?
Well, right now we have a very detailed procedure for how we're allowing athletes back on campus and other spirit groups. They're following the CDC guidelines as far as static groups and social distancing. I think that if we're going to have contact sports like football, I think we have to be past where we're at now. Obviously, that's a huge challenge. And I will say this, we have these guidelines. We're talking about spacing. We're talking about disinfecting. We're talking about static groups. As long as we're talking about the challenges that we face with a traditional start versus one of those other options, I don't think we can be talking about athletics. I just think it's contradictory. And look, I coached for a long time. There's nothing more important than getting back to some sense of normalcy and everybody, participating in the things that they love. But I don't think that you can ring the bell at 2:30 and forget about everything that we've tried to do during the day, if that makes sense.
If a student decided they wanted to do virtual learning and that they weren't comfortable coming back to school, should they be able to participate in athletics?
Well, I think it all depends on where we're at with the CDC and the Louisiana Department of Health and the governor's office, and we're getting some guidance from the LHSAA, which is the High School Athletic Association, and we're able to operate with those guidelines in place right now as we're in phase 2. But I'm hopeful that option will be there, but I think there's the word I'm thinking of is disconnect. And I know I've already said it, but if you've got all of these restrictions in place during the regular day, and then you just all of that is forgotten about, and you go back to practice, and you know, we're full contact with one another in each other's face, and I think that kind of it does not support what you're trying to do during the day.